We're back with some more Common Clash, but before we get into the game, we just have a few announcements. First off, Common Command has a Patreon, and we offer some of the best benefits for joining. All the money we make from our patrons is put right back into the channel to improve our content. On Patreon, once we reach our goal of making $50 a month, we will have our first patron-only raffle that will include amazing prizes such as the Godzilla card Violent Plant Beast form, so please consider joining. Common Command is also starting a Commander gameplay web series, and we want you, the viewer, to be on it. Just head over to our Facebook or Twitter pages and read the pinned post to have a chance of being featured on the channel. All of this information is in the description below, along with links to these posts. Now let's see some clashing. Alright, let's bring out the players. Today Betho is playing as Varchild, Betrayer of Keldor. He keeps the opening hand of Blood Mist, Furnace of Wrath, Hammer of Nazan, Blades of the Velisvet, Skull Clamp, and 2 mountains. Edwin has brought back his Omnath Locust of Rage deck, and he keeps a hand of Ingot Chewer, Grow from the Ashes, Destructive Revelry, Rootbound Crag, a mountain, and 2 forests. I brought out my newly made Gigant Cyberclaw Terror, which is the Godzilla card of Gyruda Doom of Depths. I keep opening hand of Mindstone, Dreamborn Muse, Gonti Lord of Luxury, Dreamscape Artist, Field of Ruin, an island, and a swamp. Finally, Mark is playing as Rakdos the Showstopper. He keeps a hand of Thrilling Encore, Rakdos Signet, Red Elemental Blast, Smoldering Marsh, Emergent Zone, Swamp, and a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Betho wins the roll, and he starts the game. Betho starts the game with a draw and plays a mountain for turn. He casts a turn 1 Curse of Opulence onto Mark, making us feel even better about swinging at him. Edwin draws and plays a mountain and passes. I draw and play an island. I also pass. Mark drops a tapped Smoldering Marsh after drawing and ends turn 1. Betho draws and plays another mountain. He then casts a Skull Clamp, setting himself up for future plays. Edwin draws and plays his Rootbound Crag. He then evokes out his Ignat Chewer, destroying Betho's prized Skull Clamp. I draw and play a Swamp. I cast a Mind Stone and pass. Mark untaps and he casts a On turn 3, Betho puts up his Gone Fishing sign and passes a turn without playing a land. Edwin untaps and plays a forest. He passes. I draw and then show off my mono blue ramp with Dreamscape Artist.
Battlefield. Go ahead. Hey, yo, chill.
Mark draws and plays a Gaia Reach Sanitarium for turn. He then casts a Blood Speaker and passes to Betho. Betho draws, yet he still doesn't want to play Magic with us, so he decides to pass the turn. Edwin draws and casts an Undergrowth Champion. He plays a land for turn and the champion gets a counter. On my turn I draw and play a Field of Ruin. I then show Edwin what he should be doing in green by activating my Dreamscape Artist, discarding a card, and sacrificing a land to get 2 untapped basics from my library to the battlefield. I not only ramped, but I also set up my commander for a possible target by putting a creature into the graveyard. I then cast a Dreamborn Muse and pass. On Mark's upkeep, he mills equal to the number of cards in his hand from my Dreamborn Muse. He then sacrifices his Blood Speaker to search for a demon card and puts Master of Cruelties to his hand. He finally draws for turn and plays a land. He then casts a tutored Master of Cruelties. He passes to Betho. In my attempt to help Betho find lands by milling on his upkeep, I actually mill lands he would have drawn. He draws for turn and returns to the game with a Grenzo Havoc Razor. Edwin mills on his upkeep and then draws for turn. He then casts a Zendikar Incarnate and passes. On my upkeep, I draw before I mill, but immediately remember my trigger and put that Big Boy Villas into my graveyard along with some other cards. I then draw for turn and play a Mirror Pool as my land for turn. I then cast my commander, Gigant Cyberclaw Terror, which mills everyone for 4 when it enters, and I decide to bring Villas from Mark's graveyard to my battlefield. I then pass. Mark mills on his upkeep and then draws. Mark casts a Mind Stone and then I realize something on my board. If I go to 1, I get to draw 39 cards because whenever I lose life.
Huh? Wanna do that?
No! Mark decides to swing his Master of Cruelties at Edwin. Edwin blocks with this Undergrowth Champion and then removes the counter from it to prevent the 1 Death Touch damage. In the second main phase, Mark casts Damnation, wiping the board, and I decide to put my commander to the graveyard. I'm gonna put my commander in my graveyard.
We got rid of it.
Betho draws for turn and hits that sweet turn 6 land.
Hey! Varchild.
At perfect time!
Bro.
Perfect time!
Varchild. Woo!
Hey! He casts Varchild at the perfect time and passes. Edwin draws and straight up passes the turn without doing anything. I draw and cast a card I've been wanting to try out, Drain Power. I basically take all of Edwin's untapped mana, netting me 2 generic mana and showing the power of Mono Blue Ramp. I follow up with Stitch Together, meeting the threshold requirement and bring back my commander from the battlefield. Geigen then enters and mills everyone for 4 and I get Mark's Villas once more. I then play a tap land, Mirrored Landscape. I then use my generic mana and 1 more to activate a mirror pool to make a copy of my commander.
Frank, when are we gonna play Pokemon?
The copy enters the battlefield and I mill everyone for 4 and I bring back a creature before I sacrifice the copied legendary because of the legendary rule. With the copy, I bring back Spark Double from my graveyard and I have it enter as yet another copy of my commander. I accidentally sacrificed the Spark Double even though it enters as a non-legendary copy, but we soon fix this. We all mill 4 once more, and I target my Gonti and bring it to the battlefield with an ETB trigger. I look at the top 4 cards of Mark's library and debate whether I want to take a Phyrexian Arena or another Curse of Opulence. I decide on the Phyrexian Arena and exile it to cast it at another time. I finally pass the turn. Mark draws and casts a Cadaver Imp. When it enters, he gets to bring back his Master of Cruelties to his hand. Mark then plays a Blood Crypt, taking 2 damage to have it come in untapped, which is the first damage dealt this game on turn 6. He passes the turn. Beto draws to start turn 7 and casts a Strionic Resonator. He moves to combat and swings Varchild at Edwin, hitting him for 3 and giving him 3 1/1 tokens that can't block or swing at Beto. Edwin draws and plays a land. He then casts a Kick to Grow from the Ashes, getting 2 untapped basics. He goes to combat and swings 3 1/1s at Mark, giving both him and Beto 1 treasure. On my turn, I untap, draw, and play a land. I then cast Mark's exiled Phyrexian Arena. I move to combat and 8 in the air at Edwin.
Yeah, you will pay for that, bro. Just
Okay.
saying.
This is 6 and 7 at Mark. You're gonna take all of it? So that's 13 at you and 6 commander damage. 8 in the air at you.
Okay, so I'm at 29.
They take their damage while Beto and I get some treasure. On my end step, Mark activates his Gyruda Sanitarium, letting everyone draw and then discard. Mark draws for turn and immediately moves to combat, swinging 1 at Beto.
He's gonna draw more cards. You beat him. 1 damage.
He then casts Rakdos, Lord of Riots, which brings back his Bloodspeaker to his hand. He then casts the Bloodspeaker and passes. Beto untaps and draws. He moves to combat and swings Varchild at me, but I decide to block with Gonti.
This is the most indecisive
Okay, now
ever.
I can be funny.
For damage, Beto goes to catch Blades of Veil, targeting my Villas and Mark's Rakdos. But I respond by paying 3 black and 6 life to activate Villas' ability 3 times, giving Varchild -3/-3 until end of turn.
So lame.
Bro, I'm taking 6 life.
Oh,
I get to draw 6 cards from losing 6 life as Varchild dies and takes all of Edwin's token. We make a small mistake and go through with combat as if Varchild didn't die, so my Gonti goes to the graveyard. We also forget to give Beto his 1/1 tokens. Beto then ends his turn with the Star Compass. On Beto's end step, Edwin cast a Destructive Reverie, destroying my Phyrexian Arena and having me take 2 damage, which also let me draw 2 cards from Villas. Edwin untaps and draws. He casts his commander as I crack my Mirrored Landscape, searching for 2 basics. He then plays an Evolving Wilds and sacrifices it to get 2 tokens from Omnath, and we then realize that Beto should have the tokens Varchild created. Edwin passes. On my turn, I head straight to combat. I swing my Villas at Mark for 8 damage in the air. Beto and I get some more treasure. I then immediately sacrifice that treasure to cast a High Tide, allowing all islands to tap for double until end of turn. I then follow up with a Mimic Vat and then activate Villas, losing 2 life and drawing 2 cards, giving one of Mark's creatures -1/-1 until end of turn. I do that again, killing the creature. I then tap for 2 blue, floating an island, and cast Pongify on my commander. As it dies, I exile it with Mimic Vat, and get a 3/3 token.
Ah.
I then activate the Mimic Vat, bringing out a token copy of my commander that mills everyone for 4 when it enters, and I bring back my Dreamborn Muse. I then tap for 5 to cast a Gilded Lotus and end my turn. As I discard down to 7, I forget that the token from Mimic Vat should be exiled and not on the field. This doesn't impact the game too much, and I realize this later. On Mark's upkeep, he mills some cards from the Dreamborn Muse and draws. I then explain what went down with Beto's wings because it brought so much tension to the table all night.
Can you believe this dude? Mark's got no conscience, man.
I heard him munching over there. I was like, did you ask for Beto to get you wings? He's like, no, he got some. And I was like, did you save him any? He's like, he left. Mark moves to combat and swings 6 in the air at Beto and 1 at Edwin. Mark's creature spells now cost 7 less because of Rakdos, so Mark uses Rakdos to help cast Rakdos, his commander. Not wanting to lose my creatures, I try to counter it with Counterspell, but Mark is ready with a red Elemental Blast. With my last floating blue, I cast a Thought Scour in hopes of finding an answer, knowing I don't run any free counterspells. I mill myself for 2 and draw a card. Mark then begins flipping a coin for each non-demon creature on the battlefield, and for every tails that creature is destroyed. Mark ends up destroying most of the board except for some tokens. We also accidentally destroy Villas, but we again realize the mistake and bring him back. With Edwin's commander dying, we get to use a new command rule and he votes Mark for 3. With my death triggers, I move my Spark Double under my Mimic Vat, replacing my commander and sending it to the command zone. Mark then activates his Gyruda Sanitarium again, so we all get to draw and discard a card. He passes to Betho. Betho untaps and draws. He goes to combat and swings a token at Mark, which immediately is devoured by Rakdos. However, it gets Betho another treasure token, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
Mark,
Okay.
1 damage. He's dead.
You get another treasure though.
You get another treasure though.
In his second main phase, he casts Varchild's War Riders. Edwin draws and taps out for Omnath, Locust of Rage, paying the commander tax. He then plays a land and makes a 5/5 elemental token. It's also worth noting that Edwin has anger in his graveyard, so all his beefy elementals have haste.
I'm gonna let Frank know right now I'm his enemy. I'm trying to take Frank out.
Edwin moves to combat and
So you're not gonna swing at me, Mark?
No. He's gonna board wipe, bro.
You're not gonna swing at me though. Alright, 20 at Victor.
Oh!
Okay.
Wait! I didn't expect to turn
Wait,
Wait, yours is not Victor. Oh shoot. Frank, my bad.
Ah, come on, bro.
I take 20 damage and get to draw 20 cards.
I just want you to draw. I'm giving you draw power, bro.
You're
There you go, you got-
to me.
I untap and draw for turn. Betho then decides it's time for a face reveal. I start by tapping my Gilded Lotus for 3 black mana, spending 1 of it to cast Bubbling Muck. I then cast the adventure mode of Brazen Borrower to return Omnath to Edwin's hand. After, I pay 6 to cast Dragonlord Silumgard to steal Mark's commander.
I can see.
I then cast Ashnod's Altar and sacrifice Mark's commander and my Silumgard to get 4 mana. I then activate my Mimic Vat, making a non-legendary copy of Villas that enters with haste and a counter. After scrambling for a way to win, I decide just to move to combat and swing 8 at Mark and 9 at Edwin. I sacrifice my copied Villas for mana and cast a Crucifix, wiping the board. I then discard down to hand size and pass to Betho. Betho untaps and draws for turn 10. He pays to cast his commander and passes. Edwin draws and
Let's see what I can pull out my ass right here, bro.
he pays 7 to cast his commander that has haste and follows up with a land, making a 5/5 token. He then casts a Snake Umbra onto his commander, and I respond by casting a Rapid Hybridization onto his commander, getting completely cucked by the new commander rule change, as Edwin gets to bolt me for 3 when his commander dies.
Yeah, destroy it.
Yeah, he died there.
Yeah.
He moves to combat and finishes me off with his elemental token. Forgetting to get his 3/3 ape, he passes to Betho. Betho starts by casting a Hammer of Nazan that equips to Varchild. Blood Mist is then brought out and Betho moves to combat. He swings at Edwin for 10 damage, making us miss that 3/3 token super huge. Edwin then gets 10 tokens that cannot block or swing at Betho. He passes. Edwin draws and casts a Croson Grip on Hammer of Nazan. He plays a Force for turn and casts a Helm of the Host. He ends off with a Cultivate, getting his lands and passing.
And my turn.
And he ends his turn. And he ends his turn.
Betho starts turn 12 strong with a Soul Ring. He then casts Tensis of Godo's Maul, which is equipped to Varchild. Betho moves to combat with his 6/6 Trampled Double Strike Commander. Edwin blocks 5 of the damage and takes 7 total, adding to 20 commander damage. Betho passes. Edwin pays 7 to cast a Spearbreaker Behemoth. He moves to combat and swings 5 at Betho before conceding, knowing when he's done.
But the one in the end?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
Gassed out.
Ooh, and you discard my.
Y'all gassed out.
How did you not get? How did you not gas out?
I didn't have any gas to begin with.
This game proves that in Commander, you are never truly out of the game. Although Betho was stuck on 2 lands, he was able to quietly avoid being a target and strike when it mattered most. We all felt bad for him and let our feelings get the best of us as he scavenged up a win. Edwin also wasn't too impressive this game for playing his Omnath deck. He also seemed to have some mana or card problems early on, but once he started going, he was a big threat, swinging for 20. Mark had a little value going for him by getting the search and play demons, but was just on the wrong end of the stick by getting that Curse of Opulence. He made a couple mistakes throughout the game with his life total by taking away a little too much at times, but he was pretty much out of the game at the end, as he was feeling a concede anyway, so it didn't hurt him too much. Jagan played great this game, and I honestly love the deck. Reanimator is a great way to play, but it's even better when you get to take Mark's Villas. Unfortunately, I was just too established from the start and was seen as public enemy number 1. I pretty much killed myself by giving Edwin haste by putting his anger in the graveyard, but at the end of the day I got to draw so many cards. That couldn't save me. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, Common Command has a Patreon and we've got the best benefits for joining. You can literally have a whole deck made and shipped to you. We want to do so much more with our channel but need that extra bit of support from our patrons. Also be sure to check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts so you can stay updated on the latest posts and get a chance to be on the show. Until next time, stay clashing.